I'm about to give you a completely fresh, creator-ready YouTube narration inspired by the Sydney Opera House iPad art event. No paraphrasing of the source line by line, just a new, opinionated take with heavy commentary, built from core ideas. Let's dive in. Imagine this, a 50-year milestone for Apple, and instead of a typical press release, they turn one of the world's most iconic venues into a giant canvas of digital art. In just a few days, the Sydney Opera House sails become a living screen, lighting up with iPad-powered creations. What's really happening here isn't just a birthday celebration, it's a statement about how creativity travels between brands, devices, and audiences. Personally, I find this move fascinating because it reframes a corporate anniversary as a cultural event, one that invites participation, community, and cross-border storytelling. First big idea. The collaboration shifts from product marketing to experimental art. Apple has always tied its identity to design, ease of use, and empowering creators. But this time, the emphasis isn't on a gadget or a feature, it's on the act of making. Procreate on iPad becomes a bridge between a global tech giant and a beloved cultural landmark. What makes this really interesting is how it blurs the line between consumer tech and public art, turning devices into tools for communal storytelling. In my opinion, the real takeaway is that tools, even familiar ones, can be repositioned to craft shared experiences, not just sell devices. This hints at a future where brand-sponsored art exhibits become standard extensions of product ecosystems. Second idea, the selection of Australian artists and the inclusion of First Nations storytelling. The lineup spans Jonathan Zawada, Rebecca Mills, Ryhia Dank, Kentaro Yoshida, and Phoebe Paradise, among others. A detail I find fascinating is how each piece integrates the physical geometry of the opera house itself. The sails become a design constraint that composers of light and texture must respond to. From my perspective, this isn't just about pretty projections, it's a deliberate democratization of creativity. Everyday artists contribute to a global show, and audiences in Sydney witness a local voice amplifying a universal platform. What many people don't realize is how cultural storytelling, especially by Indigenous creators, can be elevated through digital canvases without erasing its roots. If you take a step back and think about it, this is less about novelty and more about meaningful representation on a stage watched by millions. Third idea, the event as a year-long collaboration rather than a one-off. The projection marks the kickoff of an ongoing relationship between Apple and the Opera House, suggesting a model where tech brands sustain art programs over time, curating the next generation of creators year after year. What makes this really stand out is the long horizon. This isn't a single spectacle but a platform in formation. In my opinion, the long-term impact could be a durable pipeline of artists who grow up thinking of Apple tools not just as devices, but as partners in exploration and expression. This raises a deeper question. Will audiences start expecting brand-backed creativity to be the norm, and how will institutions balance corporate sponsorship with independent artistic control? Fourth idea, the global celebration framing New York, Bangkok, Seoul, and beyond. Apple turns 50 with a worldwide sweep of activations, and Sydney gets the dramatic visual centerpiece. One thing that immediately stands out is how this strategy leverages location-based art to create a shared global moment while highlighting local artists. From my view, it emphasizes a trend, brands seeking legitimacy in the cultural sphere by letting cities become stages for co-created art. What this suggests is a broader shift toward hybrid experiences where digital, physical space, and local culture collide to produce something that feels both intimate and global at once. Deeper insight. Tech-enabled art as brand storytelling, with cultural intent. The Sydney installation isn't just about pretty graphics, it's about positioning Apple as a patron of creativity who can also adapt to different cultural contexts. A detail I find fascinating is how the same platform iPad and Procreate becomes a universal language for diverse artists to speak to a global audience. What this really suggests is a larger trend, creative ecosystems that reward participation as much as production. People who might never consider themselves creatives can contribute, then watch their work become part of a civic, even ceremonial moment. This could redefine how communities vote with their attention through contributions to a shared cultural project rather than traditional art attendance. Closing thought. What does this say about the future of creativity and technology? If brands continue funding long-term cultural platforms, we might see a future where public art is increasingly co-authored by corporations and citizens alike. A question I'm left with, and one I'd love to hear your thoughts on, is, where should the line be drawn between corporate sponsorship and authentic community voice in public art? Personally, I think the best outcomes come when the collaboration amplifies local voices while inviting broad participation. If you'd like, we can break down a few of the featured pieces and talk about how the design choices like color, motion, and sail-shaped composition shape the emotional punch of the show. What aspect of this kind partnership excites you the most, and what would you want to see next year? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this take, drop a comment with which artist or concept resonated most with you, and consider subscribing for more creator-driven breakdowns of technology, art, and culture.